boyfriend. He had 5 tours. And when she first met him, he couldn't sleep through the night. He was having severe nightmares, sticulation, so he was shaking, could sleep for 3 or 4 hours at a time. And after 10 days of EHT, she sent a text and she said, "Mom, you have no idea. EHT has changed his life. And he can't go without it now." And so I'm very dedicated to veterans. I grew up an Army brat. No, I wasn't an Army brat because my dad got out of the service, but I was born in Nagoya, Japan. My father was a military man. And who else here, anyone here is a veteran? We've got one veteran, so give him a big hand. What branch of service? Air Force and Air Guard. And my dad was Air Force. So happy Veterans Day to you, a little late. So I told you a little bit that I had a brain injury when I was 19. And this was 6 years ago, what I looked like 6 years ago. Because my brain injury was in the right part of my cerebellum. The cerebellum manages your ability to balance in this world. So I would fall over a lot. And I would walk kind of crooked. And I couldn't digest my food. I would eat at 5 o'clock and then at 2 in the morning would throw it all up. And so that's what I looked like because I couldn't get any nutrition. And then that's what I looked like last year. So the brain affects everything. And so tonight we're going to teach you a little bit about, or today, a little bit about why I'm such a neuro nerd and a brain warrior, and a little bit about EHT. So the healthy brain drives your overall body. So without a healthy brain, even the way you walk is not going to function properly. Your neural connections, and I'm going to talk about neurons a little bit more, it controls how we process all our information and how we retain information. And they can result over a period of time from aging and from injury. So they'll both. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about injury today, but aging is going to cause the same issue. So brain disorders are on the rise here in the United States. No other country is having the kind of increase of brain problems that we are in this country that are going sky high. Why do you think that is? Sugar, one thing, and our food. Our food has been controlled by the major corporations. Monsanto, we have genetically modified food, which is really not meant for consumption. And we have kids that are being born with brain disorders, brain tumors, and we are declining in health rapidly. Alzheimer's, as I said, they call it type 3 diabetes because the diabetes is affecting the brain. It's now the 6th leading cause of death in the United States. 1 in 3 seniors will die with some sort of dementia. That's so frightening. My own mother and my own father, they were both in their 90s. They both had dementia. It was very difficult to watch and be part of. Parkinson's is now the 14th leading cause of death in the United States. Now they're looking at Parkinson's. It's not just a brain disorder. It's a gut disorder that goes up the vena cava and can cause a brain disorder as well. So you got to look at the gut and the brain. There's a big connection. ADD, ADHD, seizure disorders, they're all on the rise. Our children do not have ADD because they don't have enough Ritalin in their system. We know that's not true. And Ritalin and those types of drugs are, if you don't have ADD, what they do is they overfire one part of the brain that is not getting enough firing, and therefore it suppresses that other part of the brain. So when a child is on those, they lose their appetite, they don't grow very well, they can be kind of days out, and it's a stimulant. And it is not a good way to raise our children on stimulants from a young age. I'm really I want to be a ADD, ADH warrior. Teach parents what they can do to make a difference in their child. General brain issues, again, on the major increase. These are our picture of our brave soldiers that are in Afghanistan and Iraq. These soldiers have had many, many more TBIs, traumatic brain injuries, than any other soldiers in our past. It's the way that the wars are fought nowadays. The blasts, the explosions, and our men are living. So our soldiers, again, are at a high risk of TBIs, in addition to the toxic air, water, and the environmental effects of doing our wars over there. Many of our returning soldiers are diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. This is a small injury to the brain or a large injury to the brain. PTSD is the most common diagnosis of soldiers returning from combat. About 11 to 20% of our veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan have been diagnosed with PTSD. That's pretty frightening when you see what PTSD does. 30% of our soldiers develop these mental problems within 3 to 4 months of being home. They don't even know how to be home. It's really, really hard. So these are, there we go. So PTSD, flashbacks, avoidance, hypervigilance, always being really overly active, listening, nightmares, re-experiencing phenomenon. We had a wonderful testimony at my event last week with a young man, Alan, who came back, and when he came back, he couldn't leave the house because he was experiencing all these, and he said, without my wife, I didn't know how to live my life, but his relationship wasn't going well. He also had headaches, dizziness, nausea and vomiting, vision problems, sensitivity to light and noise, which can cause from a TBI, traumatic brain injury. He had been going to the Veterans Administration. He was on 13 different medications. He was on Ambien. He was on medications for headaches, medications for sleeping, medications for nightmares, for dream, all these different medications, and he couldn't leave the house. Now, when you add PTSD with the TBI, this traumatic brain injury, you get all these general disorders. Fatigue, insomnia, depression, irritability, anxiety. That's a pretty bad set of living. It's pretty hard to live your life when this is your experience. This is what's really sad. Sometimes I can't get through this without crying, that a veteran commits suicide every 80 minutes in this country. There is an organization called the 22, because an average of 22 veterans commit suicide every day in this country. You know, we heard about an outbreak of 27 children getting the measles, and it was driven, I think, by the pharmaceutical companies, but how come we're not hearing about all these veterans? They're quietly disappearing because they're not getting the help that they need. Vets make up 7% of the American population and 20% of the suicides in this country. Pretty frightening what's happening. This is a picture of a healthy brain. The cerebellum back here, this brain. This is a PTSD brain. Very imbalanced, not firing properly, really out of systematic. So we can look and say how old is your brain, but how injured is your brain as well. This brain could easily be a 30-year-old brain because of the damage to the brain. This is a healthy brain. We're going to talk about some facts about the brain and how it's made up of the brain and what happens to the brain. So this is what some of the problems that happen to the aging brain, and I'm going to add that in there tonight as well, and the damaged brain, so the injured brain. Mood change. Remember that maybe when you were growing up there was an old man that lived across the street and he used to be nice, and then he gets older and then he gets grumpier and grumpier and meaner and you're scared of him and you're, oh. Mood changes. They've got brain degeneration, and it's very hard for them to manage their moods. Movement dysfunctions. Maybe you see somebody that walks down the street like this. They don't have a gait. When you're walking, you should have a gait like this. But if you have one arm that swings like this and the other arm, that's a brain disorder. Or maybe one foot sticks out. Or they walk a little bit like a duck. Brain disorder. So you can, that's why I became a neuro nerd. I'd follow people down the street. Hey, let me look at your brain. I have somebody that I'd like to refer you to. Memory loss, of course, is a big one. You know, how many of us that are in our 50s and 60s, we can't remember where I put our glasses and they're on the top of our head. Or you're given a number. Now, I'm especially concerned about my own brain because I went for so many years without having my brain treated. So I take at least 2 EHT a day, sometimes 4, because I'm pretty concerned about my degenerating brain from the injury. Yes?
Aren't you concerned about overdosing on the vitamin D, though?
No, vitamin D, I have an autoimmune disorder, so I should take 12 to 20,000 IUs anyway. The FDA used to say 400 IUs, and they're like, nah, that's not. And of course, anything above the equator, the higher north you go, the less sun you get. Seattle is the MS capital of the United States. Don't get much sun, so I'm not concerned about the vitamin D. It's pretty rare to get a vitamin D too much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And we get neuronal loss. So you're born with the amount of neurons that you're going to have. You have as many neurons as there are stars in the Milky Way. That's kind of fun, huh? Oxidative stress, and that's what I was talking about. Oxidative stress to the body. That's why you want an antioxidant, because oxidative stress is going to be aging. It's kind of like that rusting car. It's going to start rusting our brains from the inside out. We don't want the oxidative stress. Growth factors, so the amount of natural growth factors in our body are really declining our health. And really the skin is a good reflection of what's going on in the brain. They're very close related, our skin and our brain. If you see somebody with really aging skin, the brain's not probably doing so well. Hormonal loss. I was in Las Vegas last week, and I was, there's lots of stores there, and I was walking by the store, and I actually saw a store with a male model, a mannequin, and he had moobs. Why would they put moobs on a mannequin? Is it because more men are getting moobs and they want to make like you're normal? Mm-hmm. Moobs are not normal for a man. And it's because man boobs. You've seen them. You have some here in Idaho, right? Oh, yeah. Okay, so what's happening there is it's a long process. I could do a little class in there, but when testosterone is starting to convert to estrogen, and what happens when you have a diet high in carbohydrates, not enough fats, not essential nutrients, testosterone starts to convert to estrogen, builds up, and a man cannot detox this estrogen out of his system, and he starts having the little bigger behind, the pot belly, and the moobs, and they lose their drive. They sit around, they just want to watch football all day, or they don't want to. They don't want to work.
There's bras for that.
You could definitely fix it. And Michelle said she has seen the man bras. Are they called bros?
Man's ears.
Man's ears.
Men's ears, bros, whatever. I remember Seinfeld, that's right. But it is getting common. I know in Idaho you do have a healthier lifestyle here, like Colorado. You're much healthier. You go down south, lots of moobs there. Because they have a diet that's high in refined carbohydrates. You eat a diet like that, you're going to have this problem. But I just thought it was weird that they had a model with the moves. So again, hormonal loss when you have a brain that's not functioning. Inflammation. Here's something very interesting about inflammation in the body. When you're inflamed in the body or when you have a virus in the body, you have a very complex immune system. You have monocytes and all different types of blood cells. You have T cells and B cells, very complex. In the brain, that's not happening. You have what they call microglial cells. And these microglial cells, when you have an invasion in the brain, the microglial cells get activated. If you have an injury or if you have leaky brain, maybe you've heard of leaky brain. Oftentimes when you have a leaky gut, you get leaky brain. And once these microglial cells are turned on, there's no shut off. So my injury when I was 19 still affected me when I was 54. So, and there is no drug that they know how to calm down brain inflammation. Protein aggregation, protein aggregation is taking the protein in your blood and it's like making pickup sticks. If you have pickup sticks in the blood, you're not getting blood flow. So you're getting a lot of diseases of not enough nitric oxide. So that's another thing with men, losing that nitric oxide, and you're more at risk for cardiovascular disease. So you can see how important our brain is. It's really about everything. So Sigmund, which is the laboratory that developed EHT, is dedicated to brain and skin health. Again, chronic inflammation is a problem with our skin and with our brain, and Miriam and Sigmund made an anti-inflammatory. So it's anti-inflammatory, and it has been proven that it is anti-inflammatory. Oxidative stress, you have that oxidation, and both of our skin care and our brain care are antioxidants. And DNA damage, we have modulating cell signaling, which is a very geeky term for really healing that part of our body. So Sigmund is fantastic. For those of you that went to Dallas and you got to meet the Stocks, they are definitely neuro nerds, right? They're very scientifically excited about what they discovered here. So let's talk a little bit about what your brain needs other than EHT. And I'm going to tell you why your brain needs EHT. Oxygen. If we all stopped breathing, we'd all be dead very fast. You know, your brain can last about 2 minutes without oxygen. You'll pass out, and then if you don't have oxygen for 4 or 5 minutes, then you don't survive. So 20% of your brain uses the oxygen, although your brain only takes 2% of your space up. So most of the oxygen that is going into your body is utilized by the brain. So if you're ever in a senior home, they need to keep people moving, because if you don't move, then you don't get oxygen flow to the body. So exercise is really, really important to keep that energy flowing to your brain. Now, if you have cold hands and feet, that means that you're not getting enough oxygen to the peripheral tissue, so your toes and feet. So there are supplements that you can take. Vinpocetine is one of them, but you can take a product that's going to help increase blood flow. Nitric oxide helps bring blood flow to those small areas. You need fuel to the brain, so you need glucose. Now, that doesn't mean you go and buy glucose or buy sugar for the brain. Everything converts into glucose in the brain. If you're eating the fast-burning fuel, so if you're eating refined carbohydrates and sugar, it's going to burn very fast. Think about it as twigs. So that's why a lot of runners or something, they'll eat a high-carb meal, because that's like twigs, fire that's burning really fast. Your fats in your body, those are the slow-burning fuel. It is going to turn into glucose. So I am an advocate of getting good quality fats in your diet. The low-fat diets have been debunked. No good. We don't want to have a low-fat diet. Our brain is made of mostly fat. If I call you a fathead, that is totally a compliment. So our brain is made up of 60% fat. So if you were to have your hands on a brain, your husband probably had his hands on a brain. You probably have, though, have you? Yeah.
In
No.
college.
In college, you did?
Uh-huh.
So they're pretty squishy. I mean, they're not firm. They're more jello-y-like, because they're made up of a lot of water and a lot of fat. And water, really, really important. If you go to a senior home, one of the things that you're going to see is they're forcing the senior citizens to drink. Anybody notice that? When I was visiting my mom, they were always encouraging her to drink, and she goes, "I'm not thirsty." You lose your thirst. You don't have that desire because you're not thirsty, and so you stop drinking. And then you get confused. A lot of senior citizens that are confused, if you just hydrate them, that confusion goes away. I don't know if you heard, but I think it's Dasani water finally has to put on there that they just use tap water. Dasani is not even filtered. They just pour a tap into it. So you're paying 1,600 times the cost for water when you're buying bottled water. And I think bottled water is, within the next 10 years, are going to have to disallow them, because the plastic bottles are destroying our country. So get a good bottled water that you can refill and drink filtered, good, clean water. I drink alkaline water. I was diagnosed with cancer, which actually came from the brain injury, because I had a loss of blood flow, and so I always drink alkaline water. Stimulation, what you lose, you don't. What you don't use, you lose. So stimulating the brain. So that means that you don't just sit around and watch football all the time. No. You want to make sure that you're keeping active, you're reading, you're keeping your brain active and stimulated on a regular basis. And here's a couple other little facts. I said brain is squishy. Neurons can travel at 170 miles per hour. So when I tell you to wiggle your big toe, you can do it right away, because your brain got the signal and it goes really fast. We can store 1,000 terabytes. Didn't even know what a terabyte was, but a terabyte is information. The National Archives, which hold 900 years of history, only holds 70 terabytes. And we can hold 1,000. So when they say you only use a small percentage of your brain, now we really know. And your brain is more active at night than it is during the day. If you're a big dreamer, it usually means you have a higher IQ. Yes. So I'm not going to ask. And I'm going to tell you why EHT is making you dream more. So here is a picture of what the cell looks like. Here's the axon. And the synapses, a synapses is the connection. So when I told you to wiggle your big toe, you have a synapses of the originating part in the brain, and it's traveling very, very fast. and it's connecting to the nerve cells and creating this whole connection of the body. We have 100 billion neurons, and an axon can be up to 3 inches long. So we have a very complex thing going on up there. The number of ways of information travels to the human brain is greater than the number average of stars in the universe. So we are pretty darn amazing. Let's see. I don't know. Oh shoot, I don't think I can run it. Sorry, that's the other one. There it goes. Okay, this is the picture of the neuron with the axon. And right here are the microtubules. We're going to talk about the microtubules in a minute. And these are the tau proteins that go around the microtubules. So you've heard, when you watch the EHT videos, you've heard of microtubules, and you've heard of tau proteins, and you've heard of PPA. So I'm going to tell you what all of those mean. All right? Now, this is a special clip that I put up just for the veterans, and I think it's very valuable. It's a 57-second clip. Sorry, I don't know how to do it. Oh.
It lines up on the inside of the nerve cell and stabilizes the nerve cell. It's important for, regulating the nerve cell. Tau is a microtubule-associated protein. So it lines up on the inside of the nerve cell and stabilizes the nerve cell. It's important for, regulating the nerve cell. And chronic traumatic encephalopathy is a neurodegenerative disorder. So it's a disease where the brain starts to deteriorate. And as it deteriorates, it builds up huge amounts of this protein in the form of what's called neurofibrillary tangles. So they're inclusions inside nerve cells, and they look sort of like skeins of yarn and like tangles. That's why their name is that. In CTE, you see tangles, these tau-containing tangles, in a very unique pattern throughout the brain. There are other diseases that have tau protein, like Alzheimer's disease or even some other diseases, but not in this pattern. This is a very unique and distinctive pattern.
So one of my curious, I wrote that down, but when I started doing more research on TBI, I thought, is TBI a tau-related disorder? I mean, if the tau is the protein that keeps the structure of the neuron healthy, what is TBI doing to it? And what is PTSD doing to it? And here it is. It has a unique formation of these tau tangles, but it's definitely there. And I think that's why we're getting such great results with Nerium EHT, because it has been proven to help support those tau proteins. Now, Nerium EHT is not a drug. It's not for any diseases or any disorders. I just have to say that as a caveat. And if somebody says, well, what about this and this disease and this disease? We can't make any claims to any disease. However, we can say that it's been clinically shown to support these, which are associated with these diseases, but it's not going to help a disease. Try it. Guaranteed, right? So what is a tau protein? It is a protein that binds to and regulates the assembly and stability of the neuronal microtubules. It's basically the architecture that keeps those microtubules strong. And what is PP2A? It's an enzyme that regulates those tau proteins. So that's what it is. So they are like the skeleton in the cell, which gives it its form. So when you'll hear Dr. Stock talking about PP2A, not just in the neuron, but important for all the cells. PP2A is everywhere in the body. So how did they discover this PP2A, tau proteins? So it's 20 years of research with one of the most predominant, most well-respected universities in the world, Princeton University. So Sigmund Biosciences is associated with Princeton labs. So for 20 years, now they originally started to look at this for skin. But Dr. Stock's father had Alzheimer's. And with his very curious, geeky brain, neural brain mind, he started to put it all together. All right, if the PP2A can help the tau of the skin, what can it do for the brain? So that's what they found after 20 years. Now, did we do any human clinical trials? No. Are we doing human clinical trials? Yes, because you're all the clinical trials, right? Supplements are rarely done in clinical trials. So if you have somebody that said, I'm not going to take it because there's no double-blind clinical trials, don't worry. They can try it if they like. If they are of that model and they don't want to try it, that's fine. But we will never have that because we're not a drug. We don't need to be. We don't need to have those clinical trials. No supplement needs to have it. And it's very rare that a company can do and afford to have double-blind clinical trials. We have used mouse studies in rats with some pretty incredible results. You can go on to the website and find out all these studies. It actually was reversing Alzheimer's in mice. So that's pretty impressive. But we can't make any association with what's happened to the mice, to the adults. So here's very exciting news. Nerium has the exclusive patented rights to the EHT molecule. How did this happen? How did we get associated with Princeton? And how did Nerium get that? Pretty amazing, isn't it? So I think, and this is just conjecture, so you don't, when you go out of the room, don't repeat this, but this is what I think happened. So I think that Nerium Biotech, we are fully funding Nerium Biotech. 30% of the proceeds back from our company go toward continued cancer research. Anybody in scientific research? Well, I can tell you that if you get something fully funded, isn't that like fantastic and amazing? So Nerium Biotech. So I think the biotech companies had their antennas up. But 2 years ago, Dennis Windsor, who was the president of our company at the time, on his 50th birthday, his wife heard a bang. She went upstairs, and he had a stroke, a cerebral stroke. And thank goodness that she was there right away to take him to the hospital. Many men do not survive the stroke. But he got immediate attention, and he was totally paralyzed from his left side. And I think it was the power of prayer and the power of intention. He had on his door, if you do not believe that he can have full recovery, please don't come in here. And he just put affirmations all over his wall, even wrote it on his hand. And he has made a 100% complete reversal. And Michelle, I don't know if you were at that time when Jeff would get on the call and his heart was broken, what was happening with Dennis. And I think he started to look more into the brain at that time. I think he realized that if he was going to have a true anti-aging company, he wanted to include the brain. And I think he started to look. And I think they found their perfect partnership. And we all love the stocks. They're, first of all, adorable. Mm-hmm. And to know the science they have behind it is really exciting. You can go on YouTube and you can put in EHT and watch all the YouTube videos. You can also put Me Sport in there, and some of the old Me Sport was originally how they were going to market this until Nerium came along. But there's some great videos. You can see the interviews. You can see the scientific interviews for the geeky people in mind. You can give them the white papers and all these videos so they can do their own research. So here it is. Here's the EHT, and it's helping support the PP2A, which is that enzyme, and then it's coating around the neuron. And inside there are the microtubules and the tau proteins that are surrounding it. So that's a little visual. So here is a stable one, and here's one that's defective and starting to break down. So we don't want this. We do not want to look like a skein of yarn. I always compare it, I came from a big family, 11 brothers and sisters. How many else came from a really big family? Anybody else? How many did you have? 8 of you. So it's like a herd. Well, we had a spring crop, and a fall crop. Because the first 6, when you see pictures of them, they're all lined up beautifully, their hair is brushed, they look so cute, they're all dressed the same. And then the fall crop, which I was in the fall crop, we were barefooted, clothes everywhere, and I had a constant tangle in the back of my head, just like that, always. So I was my own little tau tangle that I walked around. Finally got that under control, but so think about that tangle as tangled hair, tangled yarn. We don't want them tangled because neurons can't travel when they're all tangled, right? So what is EHT? How did they discover it? So evidence shows that coffee reduced the risk of brain decline. So they figured out that people that were drinking 5 to 7 cups of coffee didn't have Alzheimer's. They didn't get dementia. They're like, what is in it? Now, if you were to drink 5 to 7 cups of coffee, Starbucks coffee, you'd be broke. Or if you drink that much coffee, that over-acidity is really hard on your digestive system. I do not recommend 5 to 7 cups of coffee. I think coffee is fine, but, oh yeah. Ooh. I did have a cup to make sure I didn't fall asleep on my early morning drive, which was actually gorgeous over the mountain. and I'm a little overly excited today. But it'll go away. I do have quiet, and I can be really peaceful sometimes. So I talked about the stock, so it's Maxwell and Jeffrey, father and son, they work together. So they developed this patented extract, which has the high levels of EHT, and they were awarded a global patent. Now, can you drink a cup of coffee or 7 cups of coffee and get the same results that the EHT does? You may be able to extract that out. Your body may be able to break it out. But what they've done is they've extracted the EHT, taken out the caffeine, taken out the acidity, and they've added it to some other very powerful ingredients. So here's our beautiful EHT box. It comes very handy. You can pop 1 a day. If you're taking 2 a day or the family, make sure you have extra on hand. You don't want to run out of your EHT. And this is what EHT is, eoconosyl 5-hydroxytryptamide. Okay? But you could just say EHT. Now, if you forget to say what EHT is, it's the spelled backwards. So to extract it out, it took 20 years, but they figured out if they did splicing and splicing and splicing of the green coffee bean, it's not a Starbucks roast, it's just green coffee bean, then they could extract this molecule from the splicing of the coffee bean. Now they've added some other ingredients, and I'm going to kind of go over some of those and why they put these in here, okay? So the first ingredient is called huperzine A. Huperzine A is very common in brain products. For 10 years, I worked for a nutrition company, Apex Energetics. As I said, here in Idaho, I don't know if anybody takes those from their doctors here. But in the last few years, we were very focused on brain products. We had brain products that increased acetylcholine, brain products if you were depressed, brain products if you couldn't concentrate, all different brain products. And that's where I really got a lot of interest in brain products. And huperzine A was a very common ingredient to increase acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter that really is responsible for your memory and your brain and your activity. One of the things we're seeing from kids is that they're getting straight A's. They're getting B's and A's, and last year they were maybe getting C's and D's. They're able to concentrate better, and their brain is functioning better because they're having more acetylcholine. That's what's happening. As we mentioned, vitamin D, there's 2,000 IUs in each tablet of vitamin D. I take extra vitamin D along with my EHT, but if you're not taking vitamin D, which in the wintertime I recommend an additional supplement of vitamin D, this is more than most people get in a day, so it's good. We add folic acid and B12. These are B vitamins that are essential for nerve conduction. One of the most common deficiencies in senior citizens, B vitamins, because your digestive systems start to not be as effective, and you can't break the B vitamins out of your food that you're eating. So a lot of people get B12 shots. You can't take B12 as a capsule. If you need it to be with cofactors. So you want to take it in sublingually or shot or with these other cofactors. We also have magnesium for muscle and nerve conduction, alpha-lipoic acid, which is a very big antioxidant. So alpha-lipoic acid is an antioxidant that's vital to the cellular energy production. It's going to help your cells produce. So this synergistic combination of nutrients that they're adding to the EHT has produced a fast-acting. And when I say fast-acting, I have a unique background because of what I did. I worked with neurologists on brain products. I've never seen anything work this fast. Some people say, it can't be. I've already seen a difference after 3 days or 5 days. Now, some people see no difference at all. Maybe their brain, because we can't look inside to see what's happened to their brain. But if you have a pretty healthy brain, you want to keep it that way, you may not see a difference. If you have a really messed up brain like mine was, you may see a difference really quickly. One of the reasons why you have better sleep is because huperzine increases your REM sleep, and REM sleep is where you have all the dreams. And it's reducing nightmares. I don't know, maybe we're happier because of it. So here's some other things that you can do to help your brain. If you want to be a brain warrior and you want to add something to your EHT, maybe you're concerned or you have family members that you're concerned about their health, making sure that you're eating fat If you're not eating salmon and good quality fats, avocado, salmon, coconut, I'm a butter believer. Margarine, ooh, no. I'll tell you why margarine's bad for you. So margarine was developed after World War II, right? Or right at World War II. Because we needed to send food over to the soldiers that wouldn't go rancid. You send a pound of butter over there and it would be gross, right? So they learned, they hydrogenated oil, and then they came up with this oil that wouldn't break down. Actually, you could have margarine that would last 40 years on the shelf because it's not going to break down. So when you eat that, the hydrogenated fat, that fat molecule is going to take up the space in the cells that needed to be your regular fat, your good quality fats. And then pretty soon your whole body is filled with these fake fats, and your brain does not function as well, your skin doesn't work as well, your gut, everything. So hydrogenated fats, do not buy anything, toss out your Crisco, no good, really bad. Replace it with your essential fats. I'm not saying fry your food in fish oil, but using good quality fats, and then fish oil has high DHA, not DHEA, but DHA, and that's really important. So fish oil supplements, excellent. Vinpocetine, remember I told you if you have cold hands, cold feet, you're not thinking well. Vinpocetine has been shown to be a vasodilator. It's going to get the blood into the little tiny sections.
Where would you get that? What's that?
You can, Vinpocetine, you can get it in Dr. Amon's products. You can go to the health food store, Whole Foods. You could just ask them for Vinpocetine if you want. The company that I used to work for, Apex Energetics, they have a great product called Neuro O2, basically bringing oxygen to the brain, and that's got high Vinpocetine in it. B vitamins and phosphatidylserine. Phosphatidylserine is a specific fat that's really good for your brain. So if you're having some memory loss, adding B vitamins, phosphatidylserine is an excellent course of action. And of course, EHT. Now I took these directly off of Dr. Amon's site and Dr. Amon's presentation. Oh, and probiotics. Remember what I said, that the gut and the brain, very well connected? When we get all like, when we have a feeling and we say, I have a gut feeling, there's a reason, because our gut is really the second brain. Dr. Amon is a very well-known, he started out as a psychiatrist, and he's a very known, because he's on PBS all the time, and who saw him in Dallas? Wasn't he fantastic?
Yeah,
We just love him. He's adorable, and he did a great presentation. I've been working with the Amon Clinic. It's out of Bellevue, and at least once a month I've got a focus, I call them Focus Fridays, and I do this presentation up at the Amon Clinic. And but he really supports all these, and you, for anybody that with Miriam, you can have a discounted scan that he does. They're called SPEC scans. So if you're concerned about your brain, you couldn't have a better investment in your own life than to get the brain scan with Dr. Amon. I haven't gotten mine yet, but I'm getting mine. So here's the EHT. This is the way it comes. It's $55 for 1 pack, $100 for a 2-pack. Or if you want to buy, we have the bulk pack, which is getting 12 boxes for $500. So if you want to have lots to hand out, I do not recommend giving these as samples. I'm going to tell you why. Because everybody's going to have a different effect on this. And if you gave them a 10-pack, let's say you gave them 10, and if they had no effect, they're going to go, oh, it didn't do anything. I don't want to try it. People need to give it at least 90 days in order to see if it makes a difference in them, in their self. So it's really important to get them to see why 90 days is important. Yes?
Well, and forgive the question, but my dad, and I've been talking about this, and my dad's 89, and his brain, you know, his memory has been great, but then he kind of, just because I've been talking about it, he's like, you know, I never asked him, but he says, you know, I'd really like to start taking that. So we started taking it, but then he's gotten itchy, and then he's had some other challenges, and I'm kind of like, gosh, that's probably not because of it. He stopped it after 9 days. Being 89, you know how you have those things. But I'm kind of hoping maybe he'll level out and then try again. I mean, there's...
The problem with skincare, or anytime you're selling a product that you're applying or internalizing, each and every one of us have a different makeup. Each and one of us have a different brain. And there are some people are not going to be able to take this product. Then he may be allergic to Vinpocetine, to Huperzine.
Well, he said it was, yeah,
So
Well,
we
I
really
think-
don't know. So if somebody's taking it and they have some symptoms, so one symptom may be they're sleepy, really sleepy, like knocks them out. That's a good sign. That's really an indicator that their neurons are to threshold, and it's doing its reparation. So if they're getting sleepy, see if you can really talk them in to keep going. If it's too hard for them, just have them do half a tablet or every other day. If somebody has a side effect like itching, I've not heard itching, but anything is possible. Have them pull it out and don't do any changes and then add one in. I mean, that's the way you do any supplement. You're going to add one in and then chart how they're doing.
So maybe show us, once he's kind of
Normalized.
level again, should I maybe do every other day and just say, hey, let's do every other day.
Yep,
Dad.
every other day and try
I mean,
it.
he was the one who brought it up. I never made a comment to him, and he's like telling everybody about this.
Oh, well, that's great.
You know, which
Yeah.
is, of course, his doctor said, oh, that stuff's not gonna work, but whatever, you know, like thanks.
Honestly, I don't know how a medical doctor can look at the science and say, Princeton, the lab that works with Princeton University, I'm sorry, I don't really
And then he
respect the
goes,
doctor that would say
89,
that.
What do you expect?
Oh.
And I kind of got mad. I mean, this is a young guy, and I kind of went,
Brain degeneration is not,
didn't want to
it is
expect
not it's not something that we all have to have happen. There are 100-year-olds that have brains as sharp as tacks. There's 18-year-olds that can't add 2 plus 2. That's what, I mean, brain degeneration in our culture, I mean, this is how our kids walk around. First of all, when you're walking around like this, what's happening? You're cutting off blood flow right to the brain. So if your kids are texters, get them to text up anyway, if you can. But I go to an airport and nobody even talks. They're all like this. So be conscious, first of all, yourself. Plus, all that information from your text, from the light, it's firing a certain part of your brain and not firing your frontal lobe. Your kids have to be outside on the jungle gyms playing, being in the woods, reading. If they're in front of a screen all the time, they are degenerating. I guarantee it. Degeneration. So you want to have a full spectrum of experiences, especially as a small child. They definitely need to be moving and be outside. You had a question? Over here? Oh.
I'm just wondering, you mentioned the sleepiness, so have you found or known people that they were really sleepy at first and then it got better
Yes.
as they were using it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then headaches are another common side effect. So if anybody has the headache thing, has anybody had that coming up? Okay, see, it's really common. It can be one of two things. I mean, it can be many. It can be 1,000 things, really. But the people that have an MTHFR genetic mutation, you may have heard of it. Some people call it the mother-father gene. But people with the MTHFR genetic mutation have a hard time breaking down folic acid. And the type of folic acid that we use in our product is difficult for them to break down in their system, and it could potentially cause a headache. I talked to Dr. Hawker, who is a 3-star national marketing director. He's a medical doctor when I was down in, and he said it's such a small amount, he doesn't think it could be that. But if people are concerned, if you hear people, you can always message me, and I can tell you again if you don't catch it. But you can buy a methylated folate and methylated B12 supplement. They even have them at Whole Foods. If you go in and say, can I get a methylated folic acid? That's what I do, is I have the MTHFR genetic mutation, so I take a methylated B vitamin with it, and then don't have a headache. So that can be one of the causes. And also, when the brain is restoring and things are happening, sometimes you get that experience. So we've had a few people that have backed off, done the every other day, and then 2 weeks later, no more headaches. So, and when it gives somebody a headache, they think it's that giving it to them. It's not the product. It's their body's reaction. What their reaction is, we don't know. So they're either willing to work with you or they're not. It's the same thing with skincare. If they've tried the skincare and they go, I have a rash, first thing I do is say, take it off your face, put it on your inner elbow. If you have a rash on your inner elbow, I'm so sorry, you're pretty much allergic to it. And I would discontinue it. But if they're willing to work through it, most people can work through it, right?
Right.
All right, so back on to buying it. Again, if you can have referrals. So if you have 3 customers, you can get your box for free. If you have 9 customers, you can get 3 boxes for free. So it's a 3-year free.
Forgive me for interjecting again. I did call International, and they did say to get your 3, you have to have an $80 ADO.
Not as a preferred customer, only as a brand partner.
Oh, is that what she was talking about? We talked
Yeah,
about.
as a brand partner, in order to be an active brand partner, you have to have an $80
Oh,
ADO.
shoot.
Yeah.
Okay, because I was like.
Yeah,
oh.
customers, as a
Okay,
preferred
thank you.
customer, yeah, it's not the same way. Okay. So, thank you to our one veteran that served our country. And to my dear daddy who did the same thing. So I hope that gave you a little bit of a perspective. This is not something that I expect you to go out and tell anybody or teach anybody. I'm really probably not supposed to do this, so don't tell anybody that I did it.
I love it.
I just wanted you to have a better sense of the miracle this is. Now, and I want you to think about this, is that at the rate of degeneration that we're having in this country, and our senior citizens, we have more people turning 55 and being in that category than ever before in the history, and if this product is working like this, what opportunity do you think have to having a global anti-aging business? Does this not excite you where we're going and what's this doing for people? Because maybe men had a hard time selling skincare or beauty or whatever, but everybody's got a brain and everybody's got children and the stories, you know, and we have some testimonies. Yes?
So, when you're talking to the ladies that you're kind of your age, you know,
Yeah.
my age, and they ask you, do you think I need it?
Oh,
And the response would be, from the man,
Do you
Oh.
think you need it?
yeah. As far as the skincare you mean, or as far as the EHT?
no, we're just, what, EHT, well, that goes for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think. I said, we're all eating the same food, breathing the same air, drinking the same water, and yes, you need it. We live in a really toxic world, and you need it. You need to have your organs running as best you tip top. And without a brain, you do not have a good life. So as far as the skincare, it can get a little etchy with the
Well,
men.
no, you can't just get out of it that way, come on. Give me something to say.
You're going to be
Well,
older
just look at these
tomorrow.
results. Are these the kind of results that you would like to see in your own life?
If you're going to be older tomorrow than you
Yeah.
are today, you need it. It's right in the video.
Yeah.
So you said you had put this presentation together and you were going to be able to post it on the web?
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I have a website. It's called, I'm going to put it on Fix the Brain. So I don't have it up there yet, but it'll be fixthebrain.com/EHT.
Fixthebrain.com/EHT.
And it will have, I did this presentation for veterans on Veterans Day, and it's just a, not the Vine, but the other one, Periscope. We did a Periscope and it uploaded onto the website, and it kind of goes through some of these things. And if you are not my Facebook friend, you can Facebook me. I still have room. I have room for friends always. My Twitter, my Facebook is Liz Happy Now. So that's my Facebook.
Liz,
Okay. Yeah.
can I ask you a question really quick? With the people getting sleepy, we've had that quite a bit. How long have you seen it taking range?
I've seen people that are 6 weeks later, they're still sleepy.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that it's an allergy. I think that it's, when you call the company and ask, that's what they say, that it's really restoring the brain.
Broken stuff.
And just try to see if they're willing to hang in there with it. Yes?
So if we friend you on Facebook, will we receive notification here when